Vani. Good morning. And it's always fun to have a conversation with you, and which we've been having for the last 5 decades, over 5 decades. And so, Vani, I thought today we'll talk a little bit about your life outside Kalari, actually. I think a lot of people
Is there such a
read
thing?
before Kalari and outside Kalari. Because, like we all read your LinkedIn posts, we know your investments, etc. But I think it's very important for this group to hear where does the foundation of some of that comes from, and what were some of the lessons you learned as an entrepreneur also. So one of the things I thought I wanted to go back to the beginning, as Neha has already mentioned, you've been super successful, and as an entrepreneur as well as a venture capitalist, and you came to India before venture capital was not a buzzword like it is today, etc. Behind all this success, there have been certain foundations you've had. So I'd love for you to talk about, because one of the things you always talk about is your parents, and they actually stayed with you till they passed away recently. Both of them, they were with you. What were some of the real valuable lessons you learned from your father as well as your mother? Because your father worked, your mother was a stay-at-home mom and very strong woman. I have known her for many years. So tell us a little bit about what were the influence they had in you becoming who you are today, and why he gave you the name Vani.
You know, some of it, this conversation probably at different points in life, if we had it, and I wish we had, because there is probably different perspective, and
Answers.
that's
Yes.
true for all of us. I'm
Correct. Yeah.
very sure.
Yeah.
I'm answering this question as a 61-year-old, having raised two daughters who,
Yeah.
as you know, got both recently married last year. My parents passed away within a year of each other a couple of years ago. So, it's a different point of view when you can connect dots.
Mhm.
So that's, I think, a interesting pause point.
Mhm.
But more and more, I am self-aware that so much of who we are gets shaped from home and our childhood experiences, right? So I think when I look back, maybe three, four things stand out. One, my father, I don't think made us ever realize we were girls. We were pampered. There was a very loving relationship, but there wasn't something you're a girl, you can't do it. Though, of course, I mean, before I even knew the word curfew, I know we had to be home by 7 p.m. and we could play till then wherever, and they didn't check where we were playing, we were with. They were also simpler times. We were just playing in the compound, so to speak. In the colony. But so there was a lot of play time, and there were, of course, a different time that we grew up in. But I never felt that I couldn't do something, whether it was reading books, whether it's, you and I both used to be in the debating club, Lakshmi in school. There were a lot of things, but, acting out in plays. There was always do what you want, but there were some core values, right? So this
Mhm.
notion, if you don't put into kids that you are a lesser person, right? And
Mhm.
somehow the world is limited to you. And that's a gift that I think how much of that shapes your own personality and thinking. Now I look back and say, oh, wow, that was like a very big gift that
Right. Yeah.
I didn't have to fight upstream to say, oh, please, I can be this. Maybe there were experiences in the world where someone says, oh, I don't know if I want to fund a female founder or this or that or whatever. But the core in me didn't see myself as someone that didn't deserve equal respect and equal opportunity. And so much of everything is about the core in you because that's what you project outside. And if you haven't been in that fortunate situation of being encouraged as a child, we'll have to still go find that place inside us, because what other option do we have? But I was lucky that I think that was an inheritance. That was one. My mother, of course, didn't have opportunities to go to school. Ironically, her father was a school principal, but they were only allowed to study till fourth or fifth class. I think fifth class, then primary is over, and that was it. So, but the inheritance she gave me was confidence that you are a person, you're worth something, and your soul is no less than somebody else's. So she was never intimidated in any situation. Somebody could be more educated, somebody could be more wealthy or more knowledgeable or more beautiful or whatever, more of. Somebody will always have something that's more of than you. But she just treated herself as an equal. Because she treated herself as an equal, the other person, will tend to pick up that energy. I think I took that from her. And anytime, if you see that Sridevi movie, English, right? That was not our home. There was no way we could disrespect our mother ever, right? And she would say, if I had the opportunities you had, by now I would be ruling this country. What have you done with your opportunities? Something like that. So she
Yeah.
never apologized for, oh, I can't speak English or this or that. I remember the very first time she was coming to US, and I really
Mm.
worried because she could speak Kannada, she could speak Telugu, and she could speak a reasonable Hindi, but her English wasn't great. So I wasn't sure how will she handle, everything. So after she landed, I said, "Oh, was everything okay?" She said, "Yeah, everybody spoke Telugu. There was no problem." So on the plane, which is true. But she's like, I need water, I need this. So I mean, there is just she didn't feel any limitations. And I think a
Mhm.
little bit of her confidence. We all talk. I and my sister talk and say, "Gosh, we are nearly not as daring and as confident as our mother was." That's what we both say. She
Yeah.
could take on situations. So I think that is also a role modeling. Um, I think the silent role modeling that we all imbibe,
Mhm.
we don't think about, but I think a little bit of
Mm.
that fearlessness, and what can go wrong. And she was also very deeply spiritual. She would talk
Mhm.
about her, spiritual experiences, whatever, was unapologetic about it. So if something, she would always say, if something got too much, then, there is a God beyond your own sort of fear. So give it to God. That's what she would say. So, um, because our home was centered on a lot of spiritual rituals on a daily basis. I think till I went to US, I can't recall a single day where a meal was served to us or anybody else in the house till prasad was kept to God. Okay, that meant you had to first bathe, do your puja. So if we had to leave home at 6 o'clock, then she'll get up at 3 o'clock and do the prasad, and only then we could eat. So there were a lot of these small rituals, which I look back now and say those are also disciplines of life, right? There are no excuses. So there was a very
Mm.
disciplined life. So I think I got that from her. The
Mm.
last thing I want to also bring out is a topic that more and more, actually, over the last decade, I've been thinking is financial literacy for women. Where does this
Yes.
start from? And financial literacy is many things. It's not just about earning money, it's about managing money and
Absolutely. Yeah.
being comfortable with money, asking for it, spending it, both. Sometimes asking what you deserve becomes a problem. I had to learn that much earlier on in my early 20s in my first job, how to ask for a pay raise, because we are so indoctrinated to do good work, it'll get
Yeah.
noticed, right? Which is true, but you also have to be able to articulate. And that was a learning experience. So, asking for what you deserve, what you believe you deserve, I think that's, and being unabashed about it. That comes a little harder for most women, I've observed. Maybe not all women, good for you. But for me, it was hard. And then when I say spending money, I'm not talking about, just living a high life. I'm just saying, owning your identity to say, this is my money, right? Somewhere. That also doesn't come as easily. But the roots of this for me, my financial literacy, I think was started by my father. And only today I see how unusual it was.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
through my life experiences, I keep coming back to financial literacy and my relationship with money as a very important factor to the choices that I made. So I'll like to elaborate on that. My father started a Andhra bank account, and actually the bank, there was no bank where I was living, Lakshmi, and you lived, a
Yeah.
few miles from our home, and the Andhra bank was at the corner of your lane, if
My lane, yes. Yeah,
right.
yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
that Andhra bank was where
Mm,
I had a bank account that my father had opened,
mm,
like when I was 8 or 9 years old. Okay, if
mhm,
you can believe it. And he would give me what was a budget for my monthly expenses. My bus pass was started out with 15 rupees, and I think by the time I left India, it was 35 rupees or something like that. Monthly, unlimited bus pass to go wherever you wanted to go. So the bus pass, my fees, I was responsible for going and paying my fees. So he did give me the money, and I had to manage it myself. So if I saved 5 rupees, 10 rupees, I would, go put it into the bank. And there was this thing about going into a bank, myself handling my money and withdrawing my money. So I think by the time I was 10, I understood budgeting. I understood taking responsibility for my money. Do I want to spend on that ganne karas or ice cream? The choices. So just learning to manage money was something I was taught at such a young age. I didn't realize that it was unusual, right?
mhm.
So
Yeah.
this was, of course, starting with a very small amount, but a very important thing. And I remember when I got my scholarship money or my salary, we have a tradition in the Indian culture to take it and hand it to our elders. But I think that has died with our generation. Can you imagine me asking my children on their job to hand their
Yeah.
paycheck to me? And they'll be like, "Are you crazy, mom?" So I think that's
If
not gonna
anything, what
happen.
are you giving me?
Yeah, exactly. Actually, that is true. Yeah, this money isn't enough. I mean, you need
Right, yeah.
to fill the gap. Yeah. So, but I remember with pride taking that first and handing it to my father. He said, "Well, but why are you giving it to me? You go manage your money, right?" He never
Mhm,
asked, "Where are you spending? What are you doing?" So, to learn that, sometimes you make good decisions with money, sometimes you make bad decisions with money. But he made me responsible about money at a very young age. So I'll pause
mhm.
there, but I think money
I
keeps playing recurring in many choices we make, which we don't think about.
And I want to actually add to that in terms of, I think we need to look at how we are raised. On the contrary, in my house, my father was a freedom fighter, he was a doctor, and he just made money and gave it to somebody. He never, thought of saving per se. He always gave to others, So I didn't realize this, but much later on, one of my cousins pointed out that, when you're a freedom fighter's daughter, you don't know how to manage money. You're only like giving it away. It's like he'll just get it and somebody will come and say, oh, okay, here it is. It's my grandparents, my mother's parents who sat him down and said, you need to buy a house, you need to own your own house. It never occurred to him that he needs his own house. It's like things are coming and going. So I really want to focus on that because I think I mean, I have no complaints about my father. I think both Vani and I have been very lucky to have parents who never thought of us as girls. And maybe because we were three girls, they were two girls. Maybe if there was a boy, maybe it would have been different. But I don't think in my case, in either one of our case, that would have been true. But I think this is an extremely important point. I think especially if we are raised not where the discipline is there, we have to put in that extra effort to learn how to do that, because I definitely paid a price for it, because I never knew how to ask for my raise, or even otherwise. I would tell people, it's okay, you don't need to give me, I'll just do it for free. Like it's sort of, that especially the thing of what is my worth, I think. And now I'm like, me too, in my 60s, I'm learning that. And now when I talk to people, even who are housewives in their 30s, I say, you must have your own account.
Yes.
Even if you're a housewife and they say, it's not my money. I said, of course it's your money. 50%
Yeah.
is your money. So you don't have to wait till divorce to know that. You know it now. And, have your own account. And, I think it's a very, very important thing to talk about. And continuing on that, Vani, one of the things you and I talked about some time ago, which I would love for you to talk about, is sometimes we get very emotional about money, especially when you were in a company and the company is sold, and you were like, oh, but I can't sell it. I can't sell this.
But
Like you
Lakshmi, I'm
have.
not emotional about money.
Yeah, no, but you did say there was a time when, hey, I should have just gotten rid of it at that time, but I felt I had an obligation to the company to hold it, etc. So I just wanted to understand, maybe if you didn't, that's also something to talk about. As an entrepreneur, how was it about, like holding, this is the percent I want for myself versus this is the percent I want to give someone else, the fairness of it, but at the same time, not being afraid to say, I should have at least this much of it, etc. So tell us, on the other side of the table, not as a venture capitalist, but as an entrepreneur, how did you learn? What was your theories about what do you deserve, and how much do you share with your employees, etc.? Let's talk a little bit about
Yeah,
that.
I think, but I want to take a step back to there are no right
So, sorry,
answer.
one more thing I want to say is that you were an entrepreneur at a time when it was not common to be an entrepreneur,
Yeah,
right? I mean,
especially for a brown
for
woman,
a
as they say. Because
correct, yeah,
I
because I
was
remember
in
it was in
Silicon
the
Valley,
early
so
90s. It was the early 90s, I think you
mid
started, right?
90s,
Mid
mid
90s, 92,
90s.
93.
Yeah.
Because it was very unusual, because I still to this day remember you came to Intel, you were sitting in the lobby, and I said, oh, what is it you came to pitch for something? And I was like, wow, it's so different, because I could not think of, I was an employee and I was a very happy employee, but you were an entrepreneur at a time when, forget women or brown women, not many men, not many people were entrepreneurs
There
at
were
that
there.
time.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about that journey. Why did you want to be, and how did you know how to ask for what you deserved?
So, just taking a step back, when we talk about money, there is sometimes an undercurrent that more is better, right? And that's not necessarily the philosophy.
Correct.
You know, I think you have to figure out where does money fit into your equation of fulfillment and contentment. I think that is a bigger journey than the simple answer of more money is better. And like I said, I've been fortunate. We set aside the musing on parents, how much of this came. My parents were very content people, right? Because they were very content, they never felt that they had to explain their life or, aspire for something more than what they felt their destiny was, right? So they never felt as people intimidated by anybody else who may have, let's say, theoretically more, at least materially, right? They were very content. So I am generally a very content person when it comes to money, right? So let's talk about that, because an entrepreneur's journey, if it is focused only on making more money, which is, there's nothing wrong, but that doesn't define me actually. What defines me, I love technology. That's why I became an engineer also at a time when it was extremely rare for women to be engineer. Certainly rare in my family. Girls got adequate education to marry well. That was the only
Right.
purpose of getting educated, right? At least you can do homework with your children till class 5 or something like that. You're not going to teach
Correct.
your
Yeah.
children complex physics and math. That'll be the husband's job, but you at least can take them to school and handle or whatever. So there wasn't a notion that you had to excel. That wasn't there. But money,
Mm-hmm.
I'll talk about two, three things from my early part of my life. We can come to later part of my life later. One uh, uh, is I remember early on I was trying to raise money, and there was someone who gave me a term sheet, and I was so thrilled that, oh, now finally I'll have money to build the company. Or I was already building the company. I had some early customer contracts and development dollars that was funding the company already anyway. And uh, this person, it was those days when you actually picked up the check still. So I went and in the last minute changed the entire deal. And we had like 6 weeks, if I remember correctly, of cash flow in the bank, right? And it was already 5:30 in the evening. I was an hour away from the daycare center. Daycare closes at 6 o'clock. All the pressure of a mom and imagining Tara in the daycare center, center will close, all that stuff. I just said, I'm sorry. Um, I can't sign this term sheet. I don't want your money. And he was so shocked because then he said, well, what will you do? I said, I don't know. But I'm not going to be ruled by money and fear to make a wrong decision, because this would be a wrong decision. It will kill my soul if I accept the terms that you are giving me. You changed it last minute. Right now, anyway, I have to rush. So I don't want to work with you. So that instant spot decision to walk away from money, because there was somewhere a moral compass where I said, I will compromise myself if I take this deal. And whether I'll have a company to build, whether the company can be salvaged, that's tomorrow's problem. I just have to make what is the right decision today. Of course, the company succeeded. We sold only 3 or 4 years after that the company for 1.2 billion. So there's always a new day. It's kind of like
Yeah.
Norway chess game, and in the last move, he wins, right? So, right? So, I mean, it's not over. So, we'll figure out tomorrow's problem tomorrow. Don't invite
Mm-hmm.
that today, but make smart decisions about money. It's not always about
Mm-hmm.
more money or whatever. Ultimately, money is just a means for you to live the purposeful life that makes your time on it to you, right? So
Yeah.
let's just be simplified.
Yeah.
So that's
And I
one
think,
part. When
yeah.
you are dealing with money, people say, what I don't understand is when someone says, my board made me do this. I went down, I recently saw some uh, video of a founder say, oh, board told me to grow, I grow, and the company goes bust and you blame the board. Where is your self-responsibility? 100 people, again, this comes back to home. When I made a decision, if I try to blame it on somebody, my father will say, they'll tell you to jump off a building, they'll tell you to do whatever. Will you do what somebody tells? So you will do what you want to do. 100 people will tell you 100 things. But what you did is your responsibility. Don't blame it on someone else, right? Just because someone told you to do it. So that is also very deeply ingrained. So I walked away from that. So that's one relationship with money. Second, I was working hard, company was doing extremely well, and I thought the board will automatically pay me. And I had by then two children, private schools, they were going to Harkar, that, and those were like
Right. Yeah.
what I was doing, but they were very expensive schools, which I wanted to provide that education for my children. And I want to equally contribute. I don't want to tap into my husband's income. And also that's another thing with money. So when I wanted to send the kids to Harkar, which is one of the most expensive schools, I'm not saying it's right or wrong, it's what I wanted. I still remember I had a big fight with Srini. He said public school is good enough. I said no, my kids will go here. So he said something. He said, well, then you pay for it, right? And it happens in every couple's fights. I said, yeah, I will. And I never let him pay from then on for the kids' schooling, right? I was
Yeah.
like, it was a matter of pride. Pre
Yeah.
kindergarten fight lasted till end of college. Okay. So I was like, you're not going to tell me, try to control me with money. And yes,
Yeah.
I'll pay for my kids' education. I won't ask for something that I can't afford to pay for myself. Right. So it's a
Yeah.
silly fight, maybe, but it also highlights why it's important for you to have a sense of financial empowerment to say, yes, I can make decisions, like I said, your relationship with spending, where do I want to spend? And if I really want to spend it, you're not going to tell me why I can or cannot, because it's also my money, right? So I was very clear about that. So hence, it was important for me to earn it to pay for these kids, private schools and everything else. And my board, I was making, less than what I was making 3 years after starting the company being successful, to what I was making as a engineer. So I went to the board, and the board said, "Oh, but you're a founder. Why do you need more money?" And I remember that day I really cried, went home and cried and said, "How can they talk to me like this? How can they treat me like this?" And then I said, "No, but it's a conversation. What can I do? You can quit, but I don't want to quit. These are conversations you have to learn how to overcome." So I think I went back, had a very calm discussion to say, "Listen," and they said, "Okay, what do you need?" I said, and I was on the same salary, 50K, believe it or not, I was taking, right? And never changed the salary for 3 years, even though the company had funding and grew. I said, "Look, without making 300K, I can't break even on my expenses." They said, "Okay." It was, I mean, like, I had to have the courage to ask what I deserved. And there was a conversation. I was uncomfortable with the conversation. It was normal for them, right? But
Yeah.
I was projecting my discomfort as these guys are bad guys. They were just doing what they do, right? And, I have to have the courage to demand what, or not even demand, I wouldn't even call it a
Just
demand.
ask. Just
Yeah, to
ask.
articulate and
Yeah.
feel empowered, right? That I have also a
Yeah.
voice. So
Mm-hmm.
I think the relationship with money is always evolving. Have you asked for yourself what you spend? When do you say no to money? That also is very
That.
important, right?
Yeah.
When do you say no to money? And last thing I'll tell you is when I sold my company, there's also a greed. So these are all different emotions and relationships of money, right? We anyway, after long negotiation, came to this $1 billion+ deal. And I went to the board, and this was the heydays of internet. They're like, "Oh, we can go public in a couple of years. We'll be worth 5 billion, 10 billion. Why are you copying out? Why?" But I'm also very common sense about money. I said, "I have 40 million in revenue. Somebody is offering me this. I don't want to run a public company because I'm not going to enjoy it other than the vanity of seeing I'm running a public company, blah, blah, blah. But I like working with products. I like sitting with my QA guys and testing out the new release of the product. So why should I be running some public company and making myself miserable? I don't want to do it, right?" So that also is knowing, because the world wants you to get bigger, bigger. But if you got bigger, are you happier? Will you fall on your face if that's not your strength? So I said, "Look, I don't want to run a public company. This is a great value. Everybody makes money. Let's exit," right? So that's what I mean by being unemotional. And after that, of course, all internet companies crashed. And if we hadn't sold then, and people think I was a genius, I was not. I will go on record, and I've said it before also. It was just common sense. I said, this enterprise value PE ratio is unsustainable. You don't have to be a genius. You just have to be caught in greed not to see it, right? Common sense. I said, how can anything go up, up, up? Even a hot air balloon has to come down. Everything has to come down. And the market was so frothy, I can't time when it will fall, but that it will fall didn't need any degrees to figure out. So I said, I need to get off this. And so we sold the company. So there is also a practicality, not emotion. I had no emotion about it. What's the emotion? Emotion would be crying afterwards to want yesterday. You will never get yesterday back. We are always wanting, not thinking about what can I create for tomorrow, but oh, I wish I could get the deal back. But you won't. So move on, right? And figure out what you can do for tomorrow. So I think there are many emotions to money. Like I said, when do you say no to money? When do you not let greed take away your common sense and call it emotion? It's not emotion, okay? And when do you stand for demanding what you are worth? And when do you spend what you think is worth spending? Otherwise, what is the value of money? And having comfort with all of those relationships with money is important.
So I think I want to open up for questions. Before that, I just want to underline two things in the summary of what you said. The most important word there is content, being content, because I think there could always be a place you can always get more. There's always one more thing. Be ambitious and yet content. It's like to keep the balance always. The other thing I do want to underline in what you're saying is that sometimes you have to ask for what you want. Your board or your employer is not sitting there figuring out what you need. It's not their job. It's your job to ask. I mean, it took me even in a corporate life, like if I had a review, like my husband would say, have you prepared your what you have done before you go to the review? I'm like, no, my boss knows everything I have done, so why should I do it? He said, like, "Hira, are you out of your mind? You have to, your boss doesn't remember what you did all through the year. You have to say, this is what I have done. This is what I'm getting right now. This is what I need. And with the reason, you can't suddenly say, from here to there without a reason. But I want to underline that thing of the others are not waiting to take care of you. You have to take care of yourself, because a lot of times we are taught that if you do a good job out there, you'll be taken care of. So don't worry about it. But that's not true. You have to ask for what you want, because others don't know. They might be feeling, okay, she has more stock. She's happy with that. She doesn't need this. So unless you ask, people don't know. So I just wanted to say that the content, the balance between content and ambition, and just asking, no matter how uncomfortable it is, it's extremely important. So, Neha, why don't we take a few questions from the audience, because it's been about
Yes.
20 minutes we've been talking,
No, and
and
we've
then
got
we'll
some
wrap
really
up.
great, and we've got some really great questions coming in. So
Yeah,
I've been trying to
yeah,
keep track of that. And just on this same note that we're discussing, I'll take some questions around that first. Yeah,
yeah,
so one, um, Uma asked that, do you think not asking for what you believe you deserve is a woman thing? I find men asking for hikes, bonuses, promotions, even when they are undeserving. Don't you think more money means more money to give back to society and more money to fulfill personal aspirations like travel? While contentment is a virtue, what if all are not virtuous? So,
yeah,
related to a question to that also is what Rinki has asked, that, women are hesitant to ask for what they truly deserve. What strategies can women adopt to come over this?
Yeah.
yeah,
I mean, the contentment, virtue, not being virtuous, these are all, I don't know what it means.
yeah,
Figure out what you want in life, right? You want to be a billionaire Musk, fine. I mean, since he's been at top of mind from providing reality show in the last 24 hours to all of us. But wasn't what I wanted. But I think you need to figure out what is it that you want. The more clarity, and this is the biggest problem, the more clarity you have, you'll find the answers how to get there. But we probably don't even ask the first question, what do I really want in life and why, right? So I won't answer somebody else if they're virtuous, non-virtuous. How does it matter? Who do I want to be? Ultimately, we only have agency on ourselves. So I can make my choices. What those choices mean to others, don't worry too much about it. But going back to the real question, are women more prone to hesitate to ask? Probably. That's been my anecdotal experience. And maybe again, all things start from home, and maybe it's role modeled, not loudly. But I obviously, did mom do more at home, give more for the family in a certain dimension? Of course she did. Do I today do, people say, you crazy, you did that? But I do, because I go for this meeting and then come back and take another flight and midnight, whatever, to just give family that thing. And maybe a man won't do it, or maybe they will do it, almost is immaterial to me. But women hesitate to ask because somewhere it's a little bit cultivated. But if you're self aware about it, then I think you can overcome it. So first step is awareness. So why, some of it is not even worth asking why. why are women like that? It is about raising the topic and saying, what do you think you are worth? And one, is that rooted in vanity or reality? Because it's
Reality,
also
yeah.
important, whether you're man or woman, this is true, right? So I remember we had a CEO, a founder. I mean, of course, news agencies can make whatever they want out of it, but quit because came to the board. I mean, it was just the most bizarre thing. So don't take what I said, demand what you are worth in the wrong way. So this founder came and said, if you don't give me this salary, which was at that time very high for the amount of funding the company had, and it was like 3x what this founder was getting paid, which at least the board thought already was the right salary, and brought these comps. But those comps were a company that may be doing 100 million in revenue, has raised 50 million in capital, is different from doing 2 million in revenue and you have, 2 million in the bank. So we can't give you salary of that CEO. So brought this comp and maybe heard a talk like mine, but took it in the wrong direction and said, but I deserve this. But not only I deserve this, came to us and said, before there was any discussion, and if you don't give it to me, I'm going to quit. And so this is foolishness to the other end, because don't drive ultimatums. And when I say know your self-worth, all of that, you could say I did all this because I heard Vani's talk, but that's not what I meant, right?
Yeah.
So there is a give and take to everything. But if it is being absolutely unfair, then having thoughtful and practical but constructive conversations is important. It's not so much that you go there and show I can create flux. And what happened in this particular case was the board got so incensed with the way this was handled, tried to make some sense, but the founder kept saying, not once but many times over a week, well, if you don't give me what I want, I'll quit. So the board said, quit then, right?
Yeah.
And of course there is a whole media thing about it, but that is really, and so don't pull ultimatums on people, because who knows, it may backfire. So if don't
Yeah.
bluff on things that you aren't quite sure, and maybe this person wasn't thinking it was a bluff, maybe thought, what can the board do to me as a founder, right? Don't play
Yeah.
that game.
Yeah,
I
and
do
that's
want to
true. And that's
say,
true whether you're a founder or you're working in a company,
Yeah,
yeah.
And like what you said, know your self-worth is what's key. So
yeah,
do your homework, do your research, so that you can come better prepared for that conversation.
yeah.
So I do want to say two things is that in all my experience that I've seen, and there is, research data on this also, is that women, first of all, I mean, I tell a lot of women, don't volunteer for things people haven't asked you. So suppose, say you get married, you don't need to automatically assume I have to stay home. Or when you have a child, don't automatically assume you have to do it. If there is, this is something, when I joined a group, my secretary said to me, which I'll never forget. He said, and because I was the only brown short person in the room, in most of the meetings, she said, if anyone is looking for coffee, she said, you never get up, because it's sort of, it happens in a room, there's a bunch of people sitting, and hey, where there's coffee, everybody looks at the woman. It just happens. She said, you never get up, you just say, call me. It was such an interesting thing, because my tendency was, if somebody needed anything, it didn't matter, where is the water, where is the pen, I just wanted to first jump up, because I have been trained a certain way, and I had to just say, I'm going to sit at the table. I'm not going to sit at the back row. I am not going to get up. I mean, I have to do things that are uncomfortable for me. The other thing I do want to say, this was a person who hires people said to me, which was so insightful. He said, I have a man and a woman in my group. There's a job posting. She is 10 times qualified than the guy. And there are 10 things the person needs to do the job. The guy comes to me. He has only two of the 10 things. He tells me these are the only two things that matter. Now, the woman has 9 out of 10 things. She comes and apologizes for the one thing she didn't have and ended up not applying for the job. She said, I cannot tell them, you have a better chance, you apply. I cannot say that because I have to let them do it. But he said it was so frustrating for me because she was so much better qualified, but she didn't even apply because she was she was worried about the one thing she didn't have. And I think it's a very conditioning thing that, especially I know that when things are going on, I just hem and haw over the one thing I forgot. And you have to learn not to do that. And even if you're not qualified, if you have half the qualifications, just try. What's the big thing that can happen? You won't get the job, which is no worse than
Yeah.
what you have. But I mean, of course, if somebody is trying for Olympics for 100 meters, I'm not going to go try it. But if it's within my area and everybody's, we are all equal, we talk ourselves out of things too much. And that was a very insightful thing of, if there are 10 things, if you have 3 things, if you believe those are the 3 that are important, go argue your way. You don't need to have all 10 things. But we
Great.
feel unless I have all 10, I can't ask.
Yeah.
That's not necessary.
Now I'm going to switch tracks a little bit. Okay, so we also had some questions from Deepshika, Madhuri, and Smita, all around basically advice to people building a startup. Yeah, so Madhuri asked that, my parents have always inculcated this in my mind that having a business is not a sustainable option, while a 9 to 5 job is. Now I am trying to set up my business. I can't forget their words, and sometimes I question myself that will the business take off? Smita has asked that, did you always think about what you wanted to become from the beginning, like when you realize and start dreaming, or did it just happen along the way? And Deepshika has asked, what is your advice to people building a startup as to some of the things they can do to convince investors about the product or idea?
They are somewhat different questions, but the first question, I grew up in a very middle class. I already talked about rituals, everything, Brahmin family. Okay. And I say that because I didn't know any business people, any, right? My friends, we were all just happy go lucky, but studies, study well, your grades. But business people, I didn't know any business people. If I have to acknowledge truly the world my parents came from, business had a little bit of a unsavory thing to it, like to cheat, you have to be dishonest, and we are not those people. So we all have our own snobism, right? We might not have money, but we are honest people, right? A lot of middle class India was that. For a
Yeah.
long time. हम इज्जत नहीं भेजेंगे, so or whatever it is, right? So I still remember when I started my company and I told my dad I had quit my job and started a company, right? He had a very pregnant pause and he said, but we are not those kind of people. Why do you want to do this, right? But somewhere we have to move past what our parents said, because our parents would have told us many things. Why should we catch on to this one thing? We are not following everything they have said 100% also. So why this one thing and say, oh, because you told me, I never went into business. They might have told us 20 other good things also and we haven't followed it necessarily. So I'll tell you how for me this clicked. I look at anything, and there are some question there was about risk also. What is risk? And I've studied about this a lot. For most entrepreneurs, they have a different equation with risk. Not that they are better risk takers, but how they assess risk is very different. So, I'll give a small example. I remember when Tara, this my older one, we had a park right behind our house, and it was designed for children. So, which means it had sand and those shock absorbing kind of whatever mat, and the monkey bars are low, all that. It is really designed for toddlers. So, she was trying to go on the monkey bar. She was probably 3 or something. And my husband was hovering below saying, careful, 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 careful. And I was like, go ahead, right? And I said to him, what can happen? She can fall down. At best, she's going to have a band-aid problem. She'll scrape her knee. So, but if you teach fear, how will she go out there? She'll be stuck with fear. But two different parenting. I was always like, go ahead. As long as the fall is manageable. That is risk also. Not that you won't fall. But if you fall, what happens? So if your business doesn't do well, what happens? Nothing happens. Your life goes on. So when I started my first company, I gave myself 2 years and I put my entire savings into the company, which was not a lot at that time, $100,000. Everything is relative, whether it's a lot or not. But it was all that I had saved, working hard and being frugal. And I said, what happens? In 2 years, if I lose all my savings and I don't succeed, the learning will be immense. I would have tried and I can get another job. It's not that the risk I was taking is I'm going to be out on the street, I'll have no place to stay, I will have nothing to eat. No, I was not taking a catastrophic risk in my mind. So, not having an income, losing my savings, failing were not risks in my book. And in somebody else's book, they may be unmanageable risks. So, this question of getting into a business, not getting into a business, what happens if I fail, is your equation with risk. And it goes across everything. If you're launching a new product, you are evaluating risk from somebody else's eyes. What will they think of me? Doesn't matter. What will you think of yourself? Am I a lesser person because I tried a business and it failed? Of course, you know the answer to that. You're not. So let's leave our parents behind. Remember only the good things of the good things they taught us, not how we think that they didn't make us be somebody else. They did their best they could. Now it's our job to go figure out what we want in life, and our relationship with risk, which is also a relationship with money and relationship with sense of self-worth. Failing is not a crime. So what?
Yeah. So
Was there a
maybe
part of a question I didn't
Wow.
answer,
Yes,
Neha?
yes. No, that was brilliant, but absolutely. And because there was also one part where they were talking about raising money from investors.
Ah,
Yeah.
what
That
about it?
that what is your advice to people building a startup as what can they do to convince investors about their product or idea?
Yeah, so I pitched, I think, to over 100 people before I got any money. That too small amount of money. So we're not talking about getting 100 million or something. There'll be somebody who will believe you and you will find the money if you really need it. But first, better to not be in a place where you need the money, or at least you have something valuable to sell, right? If the asking for money is please, please, please believe in me, that's the hardest sell. So see if your customers can pay you a little bit in the beginning, or some way in which you can get to some valid proof point. So I didn't raise any money. First I put my own money, then I got 3 customers and they were paying me, so that was continuing to pay some of the expenses. But I had validated my product by then, and that some customers are willing to pay something. Now I wanted to raise, so you make the 3 into 100. That's a easier thing to explain. 3 people want my product, they're paying me already. Now I need your money so I can go sell to 100 people. That is easier than otherwise. So you have to have ability to have some leverage, and don't stop, keep going, find a way to make things work. Maybe you don't grow at the fastest pace, but not all great companies, you look at any story, Canva, nobody funded her till people started using the product, and you can't dispute success. Hey, I have 1 million customers downloading Canva for free. Maybe they're not paying me anything, but look how much they're using it. So you need to have something to validate your idea, your product, that demonstrate what you're doing has a market, right? And keep going till you do that. How to convince investors? Don't bother trying to convince investors. After you talk to investors, if they say no, the best thing is you really ask for their unconstrained feedback. Please tell me, because this is the biggest gift you can give me. How much ever you dislike what they have to tell you, go back, think about it. Don't pitch the same thing that is not raising money. So I always say, if 5 people have said no to you, sit back, think through, change your tactic. Maybe that's just a 2 degree on what you need to emphasize. You will know where is your story ringing, where is your story not. This is theater. Life is a theater, it's live. So you have to keep evolving, you know. Pitching the same thing to 100 people and getting 100 rejections is not smart. So, with investors, you first figure out how can you get to the essence of the value proposition where they see a future, and in that future they can make money. That is the picture you have to paint. Nobody is giving it for the love of you or the love of the product or love of the technology. They're giving you money. Why? To make money. So let's be very clear. So you have to be able to condense that answer to why will you make money someday, 5 years from now, 10 years from now, 2 months from now, doesn't matter, whatever that is. So that is the story you're pitching. And often that is not the story most founders are pitching. They just tell me 1 hour, 20 minutes of where they went to school, college, their 20 jobs they've held, and then 20 minutes on product features. It doesn't tell me how will I make money, right? So that is the story you need to boil down in essence to say 3 customers paying me $100,000 each with a very early version of the product. I can sell to 100 customers. They'll pay me double, $200,000, whatever it is, right? I'm just making this up. And I need X amount of money to build my sales and marketing, improve the product. Hence, so make it simple that they understand. So that's one part, right? And even as you pitch, you don't get it pitch perfect, as they say, on day one. So pitch to 3 people, fine tune your story, go pitch to the next 3 people, keep going at it.
Yeah.
Wow, thank you for that, Vani. My gosh,
Mhm.
I can't tell you what kind of notes I'm also taking, even though I managed to
Yeah.
get one-on-one time with Vani. I've got an opposite question also, which is interesting. You get a sense of the kind of women on listening to you as well. Diksha's asked that I have 15 years of corporate experience, and for the last 2 years, I'm reflecting on where does money fit in my journey of fulfillment and what I enjoy. I'm working with bootstrapped co founders on HR advisory and also started my investment journey. I have made my first angel investment. My question to you, how can women like us start investing as angel investors? And is Kalari Capital doing something to unlock the investing potential of women?
Is Kalari Capital doing something to unlock investment potential of women? We should really. We aren't today. I'd like to do something. I don't know exactly in what framework, forum, format. I agree. If you look at Reddit, also, it's all bro culture, right? Stock tips, and I invested in this, I invested in that. But women are really not at the table with confidence, with the deal flow and ability to form syndicates. If you look at syndicate investing, which is the big thing on AngelList or Let's Venture on all these platforms, most of the syndicates are really around men. And in co-investing, I found a deal and invite 5 other men to join me to invest into that deal. But women are not doing that. So I don't have an answer. Should more women be doing it? And finding syndicates, yes. Can Kalari Capital do something about it? We'd like to, but I don't know what that is, and I don't have a project timeline for it. And uh, for women, how can they be investing more? I think you just need to be in the same circles where you see a lot of startups come together. I think once you create a deal flow for yourself, momentum happens. But the initial creating the deal flow is going to require doing something. Most women, again, are constrained either due to lifestyle or due to personality, which is you need to be out there in a lot of forums. Networking doesn't always also have a very good connotation, but you have to be in these circles where startups are present, and the syndicates are happening. And that takes a lot of your evenings, and that's always a challenge for most women.
Great. I'm going to do one last question. I'm seeing the time. I'm being greedy. So,
Yeah.
one last question. Okay. And I thought this was a nice way to end also because Usha says, Hi, Vani, I'm a big fan of yours. As someone who's currently rebuilding myself and trying to return to the corporate world after a break, I often face rejection despite consistent hard work. Balancing this with family responsibilities can feel overwhelming, and it's hard not to feel like I'm being left behind. What strategies would you recommend to stay mentally resilient, rebuild with purpose, and maintain momentum, especially when you're starting over and the odds seem stacked against you?
Yeah, starting over, I understand, is not an easy path. And there is a bias when you're starting over. And I would say a lot of biases are unconscious. At least I want to hope that it comes from not ill intent, but ignorance or not putting sufficient care into it. The reason I was very inspired and motivated by Neha and Harki's passion and purpose is because platforms for women from various life stages to form those communities and leverage the community to their next journey is very, very important. And that was also the reason to support Harki to make that a reality from access and opportunities, resources for all women. But asking you a specific question, yes, I think it can feel uh, overwhelming when you are trying to get back, both from the lack of support, the rejection, and often we have to look for that place deep within. I wish life was simple all the time. And we are always looking for that support from somewhere, somebody telling, don't worry, it'll happen. And that would be nice, friends, family that give you that. Whether they do or don't, it first has to start from within you to say, and you have to look back to all that you have achieved and say, I mean, I did all that. This also I will do. And you have to tell yourself that every single day, and rejection, you just say, this is one step closer to acceptance, right?
Yeah.
If I have a karma of 100 rejections, I have now finished 72 of these. So you
Yeah.
think about it like that your path is getting closer. It's like running a marathon. The reason they have the mile markers and they feel like, I crossed five. Okay, now only this much to go, right? So instead of I'm only at five. So it's just the same thing, but have you tune it? So if you face rejection, you just say, oh, one down, only a few more to go. So you have to be your biggest cheerleader because no one else should be a bigger cheerleader to you than you are yourself, especially in your moments of self doubt. And self doubt is common to all of us, Diksha, but find that place in you where you cheer yourself. That's the most important thing. You'll find it. You'll find the right job. You'll look back to this 10 years from now and say, wow, I did that too. And you've come a long ways already, right? And all of that has to give you the notion that whatever is ahead, you will get there.
I do want to wrap up by saying that I think we always look at words like rejection, failure as bad things that shouldn't happen. But in life, they happen. Everybody doesn't say yes to everything, and everything you try won't happen. So I think a failure and a rejection are as normal in life as an acceptance and a success. So when I was at like one of my low points in life, I was somewhere in Berkeley in someone's house, and I saw this little thing in her window. It said that if you've not been rejected at least 3 times every day, you're not trying hard enough. And I thought it was like such a beautiful quote, So every time I get rejected, I feel, okay, this just means I'm trying, that if nobody says either yes or no, that means I'm not even trying. So I think, gamify these things. I mean, just, as Vani was saying, say, okay, one down, whatever to go. Just like we think success is ours, but rejection is not ours. But I think they both are ours. Sometimes we
Well,
Also,
succeed, sometimes we
if
don't.
if your family is used to you being there 24/7 for you, some of that also, the transition is hard on them. It's hard on you.
Correct.
But everyone will get used to it. But somewhere there is maybe sometimes said and unsaid, because love is also not always exactly supportive. Okay, oh, but the kids are going to miss you, or the kids today were upset because you were off for interviews or whatever it is. Don't let anybody guilt you into living
Yeah.
full life. I can tell you 10 years from now, if you tell them they are the reason why you didn't go and achieve something, they'll say, what, did we stop you? So
Yeah.
don't fall into that trap. So don't let anybody guilt you. And if you have been a full-time homemaker, which means everyone else is having a great time with your sense of giving, and there's nothing wrong with that. I have done that. I've relished that when I have done it, but I also don't want that to become somebody else's crutch that leads to my unhappiness. I have to be responsible for my own happiness. And if I need time away from home to do things that make me feel like I am also contributing to myself fully, then don't let anybody guilt you out of it. And transitions are hard, because not just for you, but the people around you, and they don't always make it easy for you, right? And you would have to just say no. You might have missed me, that's great, but I'm gone anyway. So
Yeah.
I agree. There's one comment on the chat that I completely agree with, and Uma has written this. She said, "I wonder why movie makers make all movies on sports people. Okay, they should make a movie on Vani and her journey."
oh gosh, I thought she was gonna say she'd make movie on homemakers who dare to do
Yeah.
more, so which is always very, very hard.
Correct.
I
Correct. Yeah.
think that's not easy, because everyone takes you for granted. And then when you don't do that one thing, it's like their inconvenience gets projected as your incompetence or something.
No,
Yeah.
incredible. Thank you so much, Vani, and thank you so much, Lakshmi, for moderating this. Vani, I mean, every time I've met you, and now I've had the pleasure of knowing you for about 10 years, it's always, I mean, it deeply resonates, the stuff you say, and I can't tell you how blessed I feel to have somebody by my side to kind of like guide me through this work-life journey that all of us are on. Everyone watching this, make sure you're also tuning in on some incredible sessions coming your way. June 12th, we have Sindhu Gangadharan, who leads SAP Labs, and she'll be talking about vision, velocity, and values. And on June 27th, we have celebrity designer Anita Dongre on dressing icons and designing with purpose.
We have Bharti Care
Oh,
tomorrow.
we also have Bharti Kher coming up on art and
Art, yeah.
storytelling. Yes, and that's going to be a great one too. We will post some of these on the chat as well, and of course, every day you'll find some remarkable sessions happening on the platform. So make sure you tune in.